Today, we will use the crew of the Star Trek Enterprise to explain what an organizational structure is, three different types of organizational structures, how those structures differ, and why knowing those different structures is important. An organizational structure is a system that outlines how certain activities are directed to achieve the goals of an organization. They establish authority, lines of communication, and resource allocation. There are also three main types of organizational structures, including functional, projectized, and matrix. First, we're going to talk about functional organizational structures. Functional organizational structures have very tall hierarchies but very narrow spans, and everything is grouped into different functional groups within the organization. So, here in this example, you can see that there are a lot of people that are working below, say, the chief engineer, Lieutenant LaForge. All of those people have multiple layers that they need to go through before they would reach Captain Picard. So again, in this diagram, you see all of these people below, and then they would have multiple layers before they can reach Captain Picard. Some benefits of functional organizational structure would be that people stay in the jobs. They're there for a very long period of time. So they develop more skills, they learn more efficiencies, and they have better communication within the function itself. Some drawbacks include limited cross functional collaboration, and there's typically a delayed response to change, and the project manager has very limited authority because of all of the layers that we have to go through to get to the captain. The opposite of a functional organizational structure is a projectized organizational structure. In this example, we have an alien species called the Binars that comes to the Enterprise specifically to work on one project within the organization, that project being improving on the holodeck. The Binars report directly to Commander Quinteros, who is the project manager, and Quinteros reports directly to Captain Picard. There's only one layer between the Binars and Captain Picard. Projectized organizational structures are a lot more agile because of this flatness in the hierarchy. Some of the advantages to a projectized organizational structure is that the teams are typically dedicated to completing the project. There's better cross functional collaboration, and resources are 100% dedicated to the project. Some of the disadvantages are higher resource cost. There's little specialization because people move from project to project so often, and there's a loss of knowledge. So, in this example, when the Binars leave the Enterprise, Minuet is gone for good because there is no one there that's good enough to reprogram the holodeck with Minuet. Finally, we're going to discuss matrix organizational structures. Matrix organizational structures are a blend of functional and projectized structures and typically have teams that report to two or more project managers and a functional manager. So in this example, there's a medical crisis on the Enterprise, and the project managers would be the chief medical officer, Dr. Crusher, and the second officer, Lieutenant Data. The first officer, Commander Riker, acts as a functional manager. So everyone needs to report to all three of these managers. There are three matrix organizational structures: weak, balanced, and strong. Assuming that all of these structures roll up to Captain Picard because he is the shareholder, he's the executive, we can look at the weak organizational structure and see that the functional manager has more power than both project managers. In a balanced organizational structure, the functional manager has as much power as the project managers. And in a strong matrix organizational structure, the project managers have more power than the functional manager. Therefore, they have more say over the direction of the project. Some of the advantages to matrix organizational structures is flexibility, encouragement of cross-functional collaboration, and project-specific focus while retaining and growing new skills. Some of the disadvantages include a complex dual reporting system, role confusion, and power struggles between project managers and functional managers. One of the biggest differences between functional, projectized, and matrix organizational structures is that some are a little more agile than others based on the amount of power that the project manager has. In the projectized organizational structure, the project manager has a high amount of power and there's a flat hierarchy. Therefore, they could go directly to a decision maker and change something quickly. Functional, the project manager has a lot less power and there's a very tall hierarchy. So there are plenty of people to go through before there's a decision that's made. The matrix is kind of a mix of the two and can be very agile. However, since there's a double reporting structure, it can slow down change a bit in that matrix organizational structure. So, why is it important to understand organizational structures? Well, it's important to understand organizational structures because we all want to be fully functioning project managers. And the structure of an organization can dictate the amount of power that a project manager has. It can also dictate the amount of resources that they have and how agile they can be when it comes to responding to fast changes within the project. In summation, I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation on organizational structures using Star Trek The Next Generation as a means of analysis and live long and prosper.